Good morning, everybody. My name is Michael Sciscenti. I'm the Vice President of Engineering at APX Labs. This is Designing Wearable User Experiences, and we're going to talk today about designing wearable user experiences for smart glasses. APX Labs is a 4-year-old startup. We got started working with the military, building software for smart glasses for defense, and now we're in the enterprise space, and we're using Xamarin. And so today we're going to talk about the UX types that exist for smart glasses, because there's more than just Google Glass and heads-up displays. We're going to talk about some of the very common challenges you'll come across in either form factor. The high-value use cases, just a small number of them. Apex, we built our business around this, so we think there's a ton of high-value use cases. And how our enterprise software product, Skylight, addresses some of those use cases in very different scenarios. So we'll get started with talking about the different smart glasses user experiences. And there's two primary types. There's actually multiple devices on the market. And the two form factors require two very different approaches to the user experience, but you can solve many of the same problems. And sometimes one particular form factor is more appropriate than the other. So the first, and the one that many people, I'm guessing, are familiar with now, is Google Glass, which I have here. This is what we at Apex call a heads-up display. It is see-through. It's a see-through projector with a beam splitter and bounces the image back. But it's basically a virtual screen just above your field of view, and the wearer can look up and glance at it whenever they need whatever information is being displayed here or to interact with it. It has the common sensors you find on most smart glasses. There's an IMU, what you find in a cell phone, very similar to mobile hardware. In fact, it's a mobile processor in here. There's a touch surface on the side, so you can swipe back and forth, you can tap. Google has some other gesture sensors for like winks and those sorts of things and detecting that it's on your head. The battery and the processor is embedded on the device, which is an important distinction between some other the other type of form factor we'll talk about in a second. And as I said, these are very much, it's a virtual screen. It's a heads-up display. So while the screen is transparent, you don't use this, the use case is you don't use it by looking through it. It's meant when properly fitted for your head and placed on your head, it's meant to be just out of your field of view. And that actually can be an advantage in many different enterprise use cases that we'll talk about. The next form factor is what we call overlay devices, and these can be monocular or binocular. There are currently the one that you can buy today on the market, there's a lot of these announced, are Epson Movarios. These are the BT200s. Epsons, they're binocular, so dual display see-through device. Each one displays an image over your eye. You can do 3D with these. They are truly transparent. I could have a discussion with you. They're not particularly attractive, and that's why we'll talk about consumers in a second, why we don't think this is a consumer device yet. And this is only one of what will eventually be many. And I forgot to mention that on the HUD devices, another major device that's on the market today that at Apex we support with Skylight also is the Vuzix M100s, which is very similar to Glass. It has a couple differentiating features, but primarily it's a HUD device. So just like on Glass, there's a camera embedded in the frame, so you can get that first-person perspective, which for many different use cases is what brings a ton of value. There is a head-tracking IMU in here, and unlike Google Glass and Vuzix M100s, there is a separate tethered control box, which for consumers is not so great. But for the military and enterprise, this is pretty convenient because you can, in a shared scenario, you can switch them out very quickly. You can have a bank of them charging. The battery, the mobile processor, and in the case of the Epsons, a touch interface is on this. So before we dive into the different user experiences and use cases that kind of animate these devices in both the military and enterprise, I want to talk about how we got here very briefly from a user experience standpoint. So see-through smart glasses and wearables started with defense, as often is the case with incubating very new cutting-edge technology, and that's how Apex, my company, we got started. And so the military very much incubated the space. They've been in it for a very long time. If you consider the fact that jet cockpits have had heads-up displays and see-through displays now for decades. But as recently as 4 years ago, the military started investing in building prototype glasses. And that's where we got our start. We were building the software for those glasses. That's the beginning of the history. Where we are today and where smart glasses are now being used and rolled out today is in the enterprise. And that's where the real value is. And that's why Google has Glass at Work, which APX is a part of. And that's where a lot of the initial hype and focus was on consumers. And and we'll talk a little bit about that. But enterprise is where smart glasses are being adopted and used today, and consumers are the future. And we'll talk a little bit about what that future might look like. And so to kind of give you guys, to kick this off with something hopefully a little more visually interesting than just some text on some slides, we're going to start with a concept video. And I say concept, I use it in a very loose term because about 80% of what you see in this video is not only possible, but has been done by APX. And we'll stop it throughout, and I'll kind of walk you through it. And this will really hopefully get your thoughts going around just a small number of use cases that this can be used for in all the 3 different areas I talked about, both military, enterprise, and consumer. So this first one is basic waypoints and location finding. Where you're driving, and then we have biometrics, and I'll talk about more of this in a second once it pauses. So the use case that's on the screen right now is what we at APEX call Terminator Vision. So this is what we first did for the US military. All of these glasses have cameras. That camera, and you'll hear this will be a recurring theme throughout the discussion today, that camera brings a lot of value. So for a soldier who can, at an entry control point into a base or simply walking around town, he can be wearing smart glasses, whether it's Google Glass or Epson's or the ones the military's building, those types that are more rugged. He can wear them, and simply by looking at people, a passive collection, send that face detect, oh, I saw a face, back to a database that they have, and say, hey, is this person, do I need to talk to them more? Are they dangerous? Or are they a friendly? Should they be here? And they know both of those things. And that's what we built. And basically, that's essentially the interface we built. A little bit of creative liberties there, but almost exactly. The first thing you saw there was the other obvious thing. If you know the location of something or where it's going or where it's been, you can visualize that in smart glasses. That's the sort of the common augmented reality thing you see with Wikitude and other things. And so that's kind of baked into what we've done in our software, and is essential to a lot of use cases. But location has a lot of challenges, and we'll talk about that in a second, because once you lose GPS, oftentimes you're not going to be able to do that precision location. So the next part of this video is going to show some very common enterprise use cases. One of them I'll call out is definitely not possible today, and we'll talk about the why not yet in a little later. But it's going to focus on manufacturing, training, and warehouses. So this is looking at operational efficiency on a manufacturing floor. Obviously, the computer vision side of this is there's certain libraries that can help make that possible today. But your foreman could be somewhere else or distance. This is providing training with interactive overlays. This is where we get into the concept phase. CV, unfortunately, is not quite there yet. It's close. And then finally, in the warehouse, there are indoor location technologies, and QR code scanning is possible to almost this degree, so that you could do things like that red one in the background is a low inventory warning for a bin. And we have actually done very similar warehouse scenarios built on our Skylight platform that look very similar to this. And what's happening here is, with this freeze frame, on the left side is streaming data and really important information. And in so many cases in warehouses, they're very interested in, let's gamify it, let's make them pick faster, let's make them let's help our employees work better. And so you have that kind of left out of the way. But things that are moving, especially closer, that's what the little call out above the QR code, that's actually in your field of view, and that's there. And the same with the inventory. And those are things you actually need to be aware of. And notice the color that's used. And we'll break all this down a little bit in a second. And if there are questions, feel free to stop me, and we can keep this kind of as informal as you guys want. All right, let's see. So the next one is first responder use cases. So we'll show some basic navigation, which people have seen with Google Glass. These are all overlay concepts, but the same sort of thing applies to Glass and other HUDs like the Epsons. Yes, go ahead. Yeah, I had a question about indoor localization. Nowadays, the most popular technology that's best on some of that addresses some of the UX challenges we're going to talk about in a few slides are Bluetooth beacons. And so hold that. We'll talk a little indoor in a second, or towards the end of the presentation. So that's a great question. So what you just saw there, the first one was the very basic navigation. So your first responder is wearing glasses, and they're navigating to the site. That's useful, but it's, you have to have hardware that can be safe while wearing it. Glass is probably in that category. The Epsons, your field of view is still a little restricted, so you may not want to wear that while driving. But the second use case is extremely valuable, and this is where overlay becomes particularly unique, and this is very much Call of Duty-ish. So you have firefighters in the woods fighting fires, a very common scenario. We've actually at APX have worked with multiple first responders on very similar scenarios. There's location technologies for them aside from just GPS and comms that they can bring on site. And now they can see in their field of view, hey, where's my fellow firefighter? How much in the upper left corner? How much oxygen do I have left? There's no ambiguity. We can put up a warning and make it very clear, hey, you need to get back. And then in the lower left, if you have the data, it's all about what kind of network access and what kind of streams do you have, or if that's you could always cache it offline using all the great mobile technologies that have progressed. Because like I said, these are all very standard mobile. They're running Android, that sort of thing. So there you have a map of the fire, and then of course the Call of Duty style overlay of where are my teammates. So next up, we'll show some consumer use cases. Yes.
What we're seeing is the UI presentation layer per se, right?
Mm-hmm.
For it to work, we need the actual data. Like that guy, how do we know? His position, or how do we recognize that that's him?
So it depends. There's different systems that actually will do this and can do this. So depending on what first responder fire department you're talking to, what municipality, they have things, or they're looking to purchase them. So the key here is we're talking about, yes, the assumption here is the data is coming in. And in many cases, in the first responders, the challenge is they have to be able to purchase it and get those things, or in some cases, the technology is not there yet. This one, the technology is there. Not everybody has it yet. But it's how you present it is extremely important. Just because you have the data, and that was what we just learned from the military, and we'll get into lessons learned and that sort of thing. How you present it will, just like with mobile apps, if your user experience is terrible, it doesn't matter if you know exactly where that guy is. If the users can't figure that out from using it, or if it gets in the way, especially in this life and death situation when you're fighting a fire, then it's useless. And that's why we'll focus on the user experience side. Yes? Yes, so Skylight, our platform, can do, when I say we've done it, it's things we've built on top of Skylight, yes, or integrated with. It's often.
The face recognition video you showed just now, is that something the military is actually using today?
Yes, they have a face database Yes, we built that for them. Now, it's not currently deployed, so there's a lot of nuance to defense and whether, yeah, they are actively funding that and working on it. So, and we've built, the software is technically done. It's more of a hardware question now for them, of what they wanted to end up purchasing in mass. So the next one is kind of looking to the future, the consumer use cases. So you're going to see fitness, this is an exciting one. We're waiting on some things which we'll talk about when we get to the what's blocking consumers. But fitness, kind of a social dining thing, and an obvious one, gaming, which gaming is the one that gets, I'm sure, a lot of people in this crowd excited. So this one, you see your personal best is in front of you. If you're me, it's always getting further away, and just because the wait seems to keep going on, and then you jump to the next one, you figure out why. It's because I'm always eating out. So this is one of the concepts we had for OpenTable. You could tie it in. We weren't working with it. It was a concept you tied into OpenTable. And then this is immersive gaming. So there have been similar things done with projectors, the Illuma Room by Microsoft, but you can also do this with glasses. So you can extend the bounds of the screen. Now, obviously, these things are much more in the concept arena. The gaming one is probably more, gamers, they'll wear an Oculus Rift, that sort of thing. So that one is more possible today, but there's a lot of leaps in hardware and some other things that need to happen before that occurs. So those are kind of I got one more section here of the video to show you the concept, and this is medical, and these areas are remote assistance and monitoring, and you're gonna hear me say that a lot. Remote assistance and monitoring are really big value, high value use cases for smart glasses in the enterprise, and we would count medical as part of that. And these two, we are working with multiple medical customers that are rolling out this sort of thing. So this we haven't done it in live surgery yet, but that was providing assistance. You wouldn't have that overlay in the center. That's kind of part of the concept that's gone away. And then this is live streaming from the ultrasound, and then simply viewing vitals. The sensors coming off, in ICU, neonatal ICU. Now, the note here, and it's paused. This is, if you want to tie it back to why is this valuable? If you're in a hospital, nurses, they have, especially in the NICU in those areas, they have boards with multiple patients, and they're trying to track it, and they might get a page or a call, and they don't know what exactly is going on, or doctors too. If they're wearing something like, now this is an overlay, but you can present the same information in Google Glass or a HUD. If you're wearing a HUD or overlay glasses, that information on the left can tell them, hey, do I need to get there right away? Or is it okay, I can finish what I'm doing with this patient? You probably wouldn't wear these in a medical scenario. What we're finding is generally they're gonna wear Google Glass or some other HUD because it's out of the way, it doesn't get in the way of you and the patient. But if you have this information up there, you can also alert them, and you can provide them with that time-critical information. So the remote assistance is what we showed first, and this is kind of the monitoring side, and those are often combined. And so there's no reason you couldn't. That's what kind of we showed with the surgery. There was both remote assistance and then monitoring of the patient's vitals. So that kind of gives you a little preview of just a small amount of what's possible with smart glasses, and many of which, like I said today, and we'll show some real examples here in a second. But the big area of focus for wearable users experience today, where people are purchasing software and devices, is in the enterprise. And we can kind of distill what the valuable use cases are, because you're not always going to use glasses in the enterprise. And that's where what we at APEX believe the key value drivers for enterprise today and enterprise use cases and user experiences are when you need to fix, build, move, and monitor. And so I list up there the key industries, field service, manufacturing, supply chain, industrial and plant operations, and healthcare. These are kind of the key industries that are adopting and looking at smart glasses today and are ready to roll it out, because whenever you have a scenario that's one of the four or all of the four or some combination of fix, build, move, monitor, you can bring real value, real safety, better access to information, and improve your workforce. The key to note about those scenarios, the fix, build, move, and monitor, is that they're all real time in nature. And what we found is anytime a use case goes up in how real time you need access to that information, glasses become more valuable, because a lot of times your phone or your tablet will work fine, but there's a problem here. This isn't real time. Yeah, you can get alerts real time, but the second I have to go look at it, and then now my attention's here, I'm now no longer in the situation. I'm not paying attention to what I need to be if it's that time critical and sensitive. If you can look at your phone, then it's probably not a great use case for glasses. And so enterprise in these areas will be and are the first adopters of smart glasses outside the military. They want access to the key information in a hands-free and heads-up manner. And so the more real-time the information is, and the more likely you are to need it hands-free, which this will fail, that's where smart glasses, these use cases, become extremely valuable. And that's what we at APEX have enabled through Skylight, and what these glasses really bring to life. And when you look at smart glasses in these scenarios and you say, okay, I need access to the information hands-free, I want real-time alerts, I want remote assistance, we can tell a story where you can make every worker as good as your best expert. And that's extremely powerful. And you can really delight people because you can take something that from a manager's perspective, he used to have to fly an expert out at sometimes tens of thousands of dollars in many cases. And now he can have them anywhere in the world on a laptop or a tablet providing remote assistance. And we'll show that in a second. So when you make every worker as good as your best expert, it's good, managers love it, but workers like it too because now they're empowered. They get information more easily. They don't have to go back to their truck. They don't have to call for help and try and explain it. That camera can provide that first-person perspective. And you can go even a step further and provide annotations and other things. The other note, as we dive into the user experience for enterprise, once we do that, is it's a departure from mobile apps. With mobile apps, it's usually you have one app for a task or a particular set of data. And apps can talk to each other, but it's very much, okay, I have something to do. I open my email app, I open Facebook, I'm switching between apps. That paradigm does not work on smart glasses because of the real-time nature. If it's over your eye or even just above your field of view, you don't want to be, if anyone here has used Google Glass, you don't want to be doing this. Which is what you'd have to do if you were switching apps. Because you'd be like, oh, okay, okay, Glass. And even if you're using voice, now you're like, okay, you're switching apps all the time. It's a very different paradigm. And that's where the real-time nature, you have to approach it differently. Because constantly switching is not going to work, especially in the enterprise, and then even more so once we get to once the consumer market really starts to take off. So we'll briefly talk here about consumers. And I kind of highlighted, these are basically the things you saw in the concept video. We've got gaming, shopping and advertising, health and fitness, and personal assistant, your Google Now style things. Really, the reality is with consumers, the possibilities are virtually unlimited, and they expect that. And so in order to delight them, the hardware and the software have to get a little further along, and specific areas need to, which I'll call out here a little later. But the future of smart glasses is definitely in the consumer space. But there has to be order of magnitude improvements in fashion. Like, I'm willing to bet, and I hope most of you wouldn't wear this to a bar. I wouldn't. I wouldn't wear it to a bar. I wouldn't wear it out with my wife. She'd probably kill me. Not that she normally cares, but And some people, as you noticed probably in the news, have worn this to a bar and they got asked to leave. That's understandable. So until, from a fashion perspective, these become less obtrusive, we get over we figure out how to address some of the valid consumer privacy concerns. I don't know when Glass is recording me. That's a valid concern. That kind of is less in the workplace because you consent to a lot of things and it's obvious, like you're using this, we might be recording what you're doing for training and other things. But for the consumer, that's paramount. Privacy is very important. And then the other half, so fashion's one. We have, fashion will come. Just like we've seen in the mobile devices, they got smaller, thinner, and then of course now we're back at 6-inch devices. But the other piece that is making progress, but is considerably harder, is computer vision. Consumer smart glasses use cases are often built around what we call in Skylight just a feature, augmented reality. So AR is not the whole of all of smart glasses and the user experience. But in order to do AR, you need things like precision indoor location and truly precision overlays. There's phenomenal libraries out there. Mataio and Qualcomm's Vuforia libraries are excellent. With this hardware and with others, there's still a lot of progress to be made. And you can do some really cool things. We're actually doing some stuff now with some of those. But in order for a consumer to use it every day, it can't fail very often. And it has to address, as I said, unlimited possibilities. There's tons of use cases, especially in just those 4. One of our interview questions at APEX is, what's the most compelling smart glasses use case you can think of? And we've had a few candidates who came in and were like, couldn't think of anything. And we're like, well, you clearly don't belong here. Like this, I'm sure if we talked afterwards or in the question session, you guys could think of, your mind starts to race. Like there's just so much, both in enterprise and consumer, but especially in consumer, and especially in these 4 areas. So with that, we'll shelve consumer for a second, and we'll talk a little bit about the user experience challenges and what we've learned at APEX. So the key is there's challenges with smart glasses everywhere. And it's, as I mentioned before, it's not, most of them aren't the same as mobile app development. And some of them, the developer crowd is usually pretty sharp, especially on UX, but a lot of people you have to kind of walk them through what they are for the first time, at least from our experience, especially with both military and enterprise. So they're everywhere. And what's the first one is we like to say white is the new black. This is like the basic one. Everybody gets it, but nobody at first, a lot of people, this doesn't occur to them. So you can't project black light. And what do I mean by that? Well, all that's in here is a micro projector. Same with the Epsons. That's, we were kind of like, Epson makes glasses when we first was like, well, they're the biggest projector manufacturer in the world. So it makes a little more sense when you think about that. There's no way to project black light. So anything in your UX or in UI that's black is now transparent. Anything that's white is now completely opaque. You cannot see through it. You have obstructed the user's view, which from a UX perspective in smart glasses, if it's over their eye especially, obstructing their view can sometimes be a big problem and may make for a dangerous situation in some of these enterprise use cases, especially in these enterprise use cases. So this is just the black being transparent. It's a challenge for new users, developers sometimes. And you have to think about your UX a different way. Like we have a phenomenal UX team. Our principal design engineer, he's great, he's at MIT. At first though, and this has happened with almost everybody who's helped us, works on our UX and designs it, we had to really stress, you cannot darken anything with smart glasses. That's like that is, like if you make a mock-up, there's no such thing as darkening. The projectors can't darken, they can only add light. They're additive. So that we can only, you can't darken, there's no black, it's transparent. So you can only add light. And so you have to approach colors in a very different way because of that. It also means, and we've actually gotten this, we get it way more often. Now, Google Glass has helped us, but we still get it, especially in the defense space and still sometimes the enterprise. We've had the question, well, that runs Android. Can I just put the mobile app X, whatever we bought, we paid, we had built, we programmed ourselves, can we just put that in the glasses? So let's ignore the other challenges we'll talk about in a second that relate to that. But a lot of Android apps, any app that uses black, it's going to be completely unreadable. Let's ignore the fact that how the heck do you interact with it without a true touch screen? And so there's kind of a mindset you have to get into of like, how do we address colors? And it's hard because things sometimes react the way you won't expect. The next challenge is hands-free input, or in some cases, the lack thereof. So a lot of the value in the use cases mentioned in the video, and some I'll talk about in a second, almost always the value comes from real-time nature and the ability to sometimes use these glasses hands-free when it's most critical. You don't have to be completely hands-free. That's the ideal, but you need to be in many situations hands-free because that will free up your worker to be able to do whatever they actually need to be doing, not messing with the touchpad here or the touch surface here. And so that's where you differentiate from this device because even with voice, usually with voice you're holding it and you're not hands-free and they're occupied. So glasses truly open up this world of hands-free interaction. But you have to do it right. And as I said, there's two form factors. So overlay devices like the Epsons, what we discovered when we'll go through what we've done in Skylight user experience-wise is that there's not a great way out of the box to interact with these hands-free. It loads up the ice cream sandwich tablet home screen and the old Holo launcher, and you have a touch surface here. But that's obviously it's not hands-free. Well, they're over your eyes. They have an IMU. It occurred to our CEO and CTO at one point, and our UX guys are like, what if we use the IMU to use your head as a pointing device? And that doesn't mean like you're like moving a mouse. That just means the center of wherever you're looking, where you dwell, is where you look. And this has actually worked out very well. And so what you can do now with the IMU in there and with Skylight is you can look at something and then interact with it without ever touching anything. And that has become extremely powerful. And that works really well on overlay devices because what you're looking at, because it's over your eye, where you're gazing, is what you're interacting with. And we'll show an actual video shot from behind these with that. So if you can't solve the hands-free problem sometimes with overlay or HUD, then you're really diminishing the value of glasses, and it's less likely your user experience is gonna hurt, and they're just gonna say, why don't I use a phone or tablet? Now HUD, so the other types of interaction you can do with these and with Google Glass and other HUDs like Vuzix is gestures and voice. Gestures, you have a limited number of options unless you add a device like a Myo. If you aren't familiar with it, it's a gesture device by Thalmic Labs that put its sensors on your wrist. It's looks like an armband. It's actually it does really high resolution gestures, and you can train it. We have support in Skylight, but that's another device you have to buy. So gestures are good. Not everyone's going to buy that device, though, not every customer. And so that's something to think about. Voice is awesome, especially when you have Google's cloud behind it. But there are offline solutions that are good, too. Vuzix M100s have nuances libraries. They're one of the leaders in this. But it breaks down the second you have background noise. And so there's like solutions to certain use cases and sometimes voice is right. Sometimes it's not, and so you kind of have to balance that and figure out when does it make sense and when doesn't it. And with HUD, so heads-up displays, this is out of your field of view. So the challenge that comes up here is usually you might use head tracking as gestures, but since you're not going to look through this, it's kind of awkward to be like, okay, look over there, and then you're like looking up, and so you can't really use head tracking to the same degree in which we use it in the Epsons or other overlay devices that'll be coming on the market. So the next one is social friction. The good news about this in the enterprise is that it's easy to overcome. So yeah, they look weird. I put these on earlier. Like we said, hopefully everyone agreed you wouldn't wear them to a bar. Not going to overcome that yet in the consumer space until new hardware comes out, until things get, or norms change. This one doesn't look terrible, but social norms are such that a lot of people don't like you wearing this. A lot of this crowd thinks it's cool. We did work with the Washington Capitals with our Skybox app, which is our sports platform built on Skylight. And people in DC thought it was really cool at the Caps game. So there's specific consumer use cases where, okay, this might, I'm at a sporting event, I expect to be recorded maybe anyways. But I again probably don't want to wear it to a bar. So there's a lot of social friction there, and maybe some norms that need to change or devices that need to change. But in the enterprise, your uniform can be issued sometimes, especially for field service or others. And you often, like on a construction site or a warehouse or manufacturing, you'll have a hard hat. And companies like, you're wearing that hard hat, you don't have a choice. So the glasses, and this is what we're seeing happening, become part of the uniform. And there's not much social friction at work. It's like, you're there to work. Okay, you might not look great in a hard hat, and it might make your hair, look like mine. I'm sorry, like a Brillo pad. But it doesn't matter. You're at work, right? Usually, most people, unless you're, in like communications or something, how you look at work, especially in field service, our target markets here for smart glasses today, where we're seeing come out, the social friction is far less, but the consumer side is still developing. And then obviously in the military, it's like that's what you're wearing, so get over it. The next one is contrasting views. And so this ties into the white is the new black. Any user experience has to account for the fact that at 1 second, the user I might be looking into these bright lights or, just outside. People, especially field service, they go outside. And so it could be really bright. And so the user experience and the UI needs to adjust to that. It has to account for that. But then it also needs to account for the fact that, hey, you just went into a dark room. I shouldn't have the brightness, jacked up to 100%, or you're going to take these glasses off. You're like, oh, this hurts my eyes, and that's far worse. That's far worse than your phone just not, okay, you're trying to use my line of business app on my phone, and it's like, it's not working. That's annoying. It's like, okay, I'll put my phone back in my pocket. Like your phone kind of lives in your pocket, right? Glasses are supposed to be on your face. Now, we're not at a point where workers will wear these, 8 hours a day. But if they're not going to wear it, the second they come inside and there's information they still need, they're just going to revert back to this. And so being able to adjust to the fact that backgrounds are always changing, certain colors don't work in certain environments. These are all things that you have to solve for so that your user experience delights these users and they're like, oh, I want to wear these glasses because not only are they, they're cool, but they make my job and life easier. And in many cases, they make my job safer. And that's the other thing we'll talk, I'll show one of the use cases for. A big customer of ours is oil and gas. Oil and gas is obsessed with safety, as they should be. They deal with rather explosive materials, or flammable. So if your user experience cannot, doesn't communicate essential information at the right time to those users, it could be dangerous. Your UI may have failed, and if they were relying on it, and so they won't rely on it. I mean, that's at the end of the day, it means they will not use it. If you want to push them information that's vital, and they can't read it because they're outside on an oil rig or something like that, where there's bright sunlight, and because you picked the wrong color or it doesn't adapt properly, then they'll go to whatever system they're using now, or they'll just won't wear it. Because there's a tax. I mean, you're wearing something, so you have to make sure it's valuable to that person. Okay, so user attention is the next one, and this kind of relates to what I was just saying. So you have to have the info accessible to the user without getting in their way. That's like, I say this towards the end. This is probably one of number one tenets. If your UX, our UX, obstructs the user's view, then we failed. Like they will not wear these glasses. That's for Epsons. It's especially true for overlay devices. For HUDs, it's still true. Like you don't want it to get in the way if it's always beeping and doing something. So you have to not have information overload. You have to present the right information at the right time, much more so than on a tablet or phone, where you have a much bigger workspace to deal with, much bigger presentation layer. There's no drawers on these, right? You're not going to swipe around to go get more information. Whatever they need needs to be surfaced on the screen and no more. And if it needs to be hidden and they need access, it needs to be really easy to get to, and hopefully in a hands-free way. So only show the most essential information. Luckily, back-end intelligence like Google Now and those sorts of things are really developing nicely, and it's becoming easier to automatically figure that out. And finally, battery life. This is an actual UX challenge because it's a bigger problem on smart glasses than on mobile, because now I can put this died, I can just put it away, I'll charge it. These, it's like, oh, it's on me, and now I'm depending on it. You depend on these much more because it's real time. And so if it fails, if the battery dies, you're like, oh, well, these are useless, the battery dies too quickly. So you can build user experiences. This is what we've done, put a lot of work into Skylight for, that encourage and sometimes enforce user patterns that don't kill the battery. So that means we have a video recording messaging feature. So you record a video, you send it back, maybe it gets attached to an SAP ticket. We put a time limit on that recording. Now that's adjustable, but that's so that you don't kill the battery right away, and you can get 4 recordings in if you need it, that sort of thing. You can get more than 4, but that's just an example. It depends on how long it is. So encourage user patterns that respect the battery life of these devices, even if you have a MOFI or some external power source attached. So we'll talk real quick about some actual user experience challenges here. This is just kind of visualizing what I just talked about. And I'll try and, we've got about 7 minutes left, so probably speed through these a little quickly so we can get to more questions if people have them. This is a critical care scenario. We actually, we have some very similar scenarios where we've done now. You'll notice, so that it's a surgeon. The background's obviously fake, but the overlays are very similar to what we do with Skylight. On the left side, you have an alert, bright red like, okay, really bad, right? That's standard UI, UX paradigms. But the key is it's not in the center field of view. Now that center reticle, I'll show you guys in a video in a second. That's where your head tracking is. You have the real-time sensor streaming, what's most important to the surgeon in this case, blood pressure, and then a history so that they know what's been going on. This kind of summarizes it. Notice there's not much information here. The center is sacred. We're not putting anything but the little reticle there, unless the user initiates something. So if you need a video and you want it full screen, the user can initiate that. But the software should never do anything. Our user experience should never put something in the center of the field of view in the user's way unless the user directed it. Because otherwise, you cut the wrong thing, bad things happen. Or you screw up what you're doing on that oil rig. So this kind of exemplifies the importance of keeping the center of the field of view. And here on glass, the key is only the essential information. So if you transform this to a HUD, which we'll do in the next slide, you would only want to show what's really important. Otherwise, the surgeon's not going to be able to touch the device. And we've had that in in other scenarios too with chemical engineering, those sorts of things, when you're dealing with volatile chemicals. They want to wear them, but they can't touch it. So the next one shows you a field service scenario. This is the remote assistance, and this is a glass HUD. And so what happens here is, remote assistance and easier communication is what we bring to, first order you bring to field service. There's a lot more too, but safety is often paramount for our customers, as I mentioned. So HUD is really well suited, overlay is not for safety. And why? Aside from, let's ignore safety certifications for devices and those sorts of things, the HUD, especially in case of glass physics, it's out of my field of view. I only have to look at this when I deem it safe as the user. I am in control. I am, even if we've written Skylight, right? Technically, you're not in control. Something could happen. Something gets displayed. Something's, someone on your back end, because it's customizable at your enterprise, has sent something that ends up, telling you the wrong thing or, at the wrong time. Whereas with glass, you can, with the HUD, you simply can glance at it when you need to and get that information when you need it. And so that it really adds to the safety story with field service and other potentially dangerous use cases. And these are high value use cases. These are really skilled workers and companies. Fortune 500 is who we work with. So this user experience, while simple, is important. And then the video teleconference, that kind of drives home one of the big value drivers here, which is this camera, that first person perspective, will be one of the #1 things for any user experience with smart glasses. You now have a first-person view into what that user's doing, and your expert can provide help, and they can do other things without occupying their hands. So again, safety is paramount in many of these cases, and so they can stay safe, and they can keep doing what they're doing, even if safety's not, but still get the audio help, because you can attach an earbud, or you can use the bone conductor if it's quiet enough. So the video is key. The users don't have to do anything, and they can provide their first-person perspective and get the help they need, or just get coaching, and all without changing their workflow. All right, so very briefly, I'll show you some of the Skylight UX lessons learned. So this is our 3rd generation user experience. It started with the military and just overlay devices, but now we're platform agnostic, so we support Vuzix M100s, Google Glass, Epson Vivarios, any device that's on the market, mass-produced. Skylight supports it. It's built on Xamarin, and we're very much about making these user experience challenges I talked about abstracted away from the developer. So all they have to do is connect it to their data systems, or out of the box, you get like calling and that sort of thing. So let's get this started. So what you're going to see here, this is looking through the Epsons. The background is fake, but the video is, our UX has been updated slightly. That center reticle, all the person's doing here, in this case the camera rig, is turning their head. They're not touching anything. And that always stays in the center. And what you're going to see happen is there's that beacon, the chevron on the left is directing them to an important, what we call a beacon. In this case, it's a GPS located object. But it doesn't have to be. It could just be something is in the area. It's generally over there. The radar on the left should be familiar from anybody Call of Duty. Obviously, that works best when you have geolocation outdoors. And at the bottom, outside of the center field of view, and this is all hydrated by our enterprise customers on the back end, is current tasking. And so the tasking is there. It's not in the center field of view. You can just kind of glance at it while you're working. Let's see, we paused. And so then you go look over to the right, and we're going to hover on a point. Let me pause it here. Points, in this case, they have nested information. I just opened it. All you had to do was look at it. And now you're going to turn your head. They're going to pull up streaming data from this particular wind turbine. So this one's networked. So now it's coming in on the left. We've actually changed the appearance of that a little bit since this video was shot. And then on the right, now it's streaming video. And all these things are enabled out of the box. That's just a HTTP video server. And so you don't have to worry about the user experience and getting in the way, because we've tried to make it so that it's ridiculously easy to do. And so now this is where I want to show you guys the collaboration. And then I think we'll maybe take a quick question, or I can also be available in the back. This is tasking via our web dashboard, but oftentimes we've integrated with SAP and others, and so you can do tasking via other things like external workflows and those sorts of things. But so they're going to send the task. In this case, the user, this is the old task response system. Let's see if I can skip over it. They're going to look up. Now it's much shorter. There's less steps. They're going to mark this task as I need help. Now, so that's configurable. You can have that auto call your supervisor or someone who can provide help. And all they're doing here is looking up. But the power comes in. So in this case, they may mark it, I need help. And I think they're just completing it here. The supervisor says, I want to ask a question about that. So they say yes. They're going to call their supervisor. It seems like my computer is struggling. So the supervisor is going to call them. Now the value we add with Skylight is this all is out of the box. And the remote, remote telepresence remote teleconferencing is very important, but we take it a step further. What if you want to call attention to something? Smart Glasses overlay is phenomenal for that. So are these. You can send an image of an annotated video. And so what will happen here, oh, that's right, it paused, sorry. And I'm over time, so let's see. So it's going to send, that's the first person perspective back to a dashboard anywhere in the world. You have an expert somewhere, he sees what he's looking at. Obviously, this is it's stock video. But now that's what the user sees. And it can be one way, but they see the person they're talking to, they hear them. And the person on the web is circling, putting a square around, hey, go check this out. You can now provide John Madden style telestration direct to the person in the field, and there's no ambiguity. And so that's what we've done. And we transparently make that work on glass too. So you don't have to worry about which device. It just sends a photo, an image of that that telestration of your actual video. So with that, I think I am over time because it's counting up. Just real quick, where are we going next? Indoor location, so appreciate that. That's going to get better and better. Wearables, Moto 360s, watches, they will get integrated into this. They provide good notifications, and I think other use cases are coming up. And finally, AR. We are, we truly believe AR. Matayo, Vuforia, others are investing lots of time into it. They're doing a great job, and that's going to come, and it's going to enable all those more, better enterprise scenarios and the really exciting consumer space. So thank you all for your time, and I'll be happy to take questions, I think, in the back. That way I don't run over too much here.